Hey, before I get into the episode itself, I wanted to take a minute to say a massive thank you to everyone who listened to, subscribed to, and shared the podcast. Mental health is something that we'll likely all struggle with at some point in our lives, and so if this tiny podcast can make an equally tiny impact, then we're doing something positive and we're doing something right. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. Now let's get to it. This is the Happy Dev Podcast with me, James Brooks. Hi there. Welcome to the first episode of Happy Dev, a brand new podcast where we discuss mental health in software development. In each episode, we'll be talking to a software developer about their experiences with mental health and what we can do as an industry to make a positive change. In this week's episode, I speak to Dries Vints. Dries works at Laravel, which makes him a colleague of mine, and alongside his day job is a blogger, speaker, meetup and conference organiser, podcaster, and has recently announced Eventy, a new project he's working on. Hey Dries.
Hello.
You want to start by introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I grown up in my old village where I live. It's actually called, the municipality is called Beringen, and the small village where I lived in is called Stal, which loosely translates in Dutch as a barn. And then when I started working in my first job, which was in Antwerp, which was for a small web agency here in Antwerp, I moved here after a year. I spent here in Antwerp for about a year, but then I was like in a phase of my life where I didn't really know where I wanted to live, like closer to my work or closer to my family. So I moved back to Limburg for a couple of years. But in the end, I decided upon that it was probably best for me that I lived closer to where I worked. So I moved back to Antwerp when I found my new job as well there. And I've stayed there ever since for almost 5 years now. Yeah.
So what is it that made you move from Limburg then? Because obviously you had the job offer, but I presume that's quite a big move for somebody by themselves at such a young age as well.
Yeah, definitely. A couple of reasons really. Mostly indeed because of the job. It's just like way easier. I was doing like a 1.5 hour commute every day, like, and back and forth together. It was almost 3 hours, which was pretty intense. It was by train, so I always really enjoy doing traveling by train because you can like still do a lot on there. You can read, do some work and stuff like that. But in the end, it was like pretty tough, and it just makes sense that I moved to Antwerp. Second reason was obviously because Antwerp is like an amazing city. It's by far my favorite Belgium city. People are really cool here. There's like it's a beautiful city. There's lots of things to do here. It's just like a fun city to live in. Lots of cultures here as well. So it's a really multicultural city.
So your first conference, Full Stack Europe, is just finished. It was a pleasure to be there, so thank you for having me. Can you tell us how you got there? Because organising a conference is no mean feat.
Yeah, definitely. It's been quite a journey already. I think I've already been a programmer for over 10 years now, probably 9 years professionally. And the way it kind of started was like as a kid, as a teenager, I was always pretty much into video games, lots of PC games, shooters, real-time strategy games. And I still remember that me and my best buddy from back then, we had this game we played called Hearts of Iron, Doomsday, and it was like this grand strategy game on a massive scale, like nothing compared to it, like the traditional RTS games, but it was like pretty hardcore. We'd do like LAN parties in the evenings, and it's like an entire game would last almost for like 3/4 of a year before we got to the end of it. Yeah, so it was pretty intense. Hardcore back then. Yeah, but I still remember from back then the game that's like this pretty cool way of modding the game, so you could like manipulate the game in ways which fit your use case. You could like build different scenarios, different characters, different units and stuff like that. It was pretty fun to tinker with. And that actually like sort of started rolling the ball for me, like tinkering with stuff, building my own stuff, which got me into programming as well. And not far after, I started like trying out some things with PHP, which led me, after my high school, led me to like apply for college. And it was like a sort of education there for like lots of different multimedia kind of stuff. It was like a lot of for one single direction you could take. You didn't only have programming, but you also had some design, some video, some photography. It was like lots of things in one education. And eventually, you during the next couple of years, you would grow to a single purpose thing. But during that first year, like I felt really out of place. Like I felt like I wasn't really learning a lot from what I was interested in. Like programming was only like a very small fragment of it. So, and my grades were like pretty bad.
And do you think that was because you didn't have the interest that you needed for the other subjects?
Yeah, definitely. Like I didn't have any motivation at all for the other subjects. Which led me to like some really bad grades and didn't motivate me at all to continue. So after that first year, I dropped out of college, real college dropout here. I immediately tried something else. And I thought to myself, like, yeah, this college thing isn't really working out for me. So I decided to just like go for work immediately from the get-go. After that, I dropped out. I figured like I need to have like some sort of like education. I can't just like start with nothing. So I decided to apply for what's called adult education here in Belgium. And the course I took was like just web design. And you had like lots of practical stuff, like lots of programming, lots of web design, lots of things that really made sense to the subject at hand, and that really helped me a lot. It was day education, like you just went to school every single day for a full day for the entire week, and that for like 4 months or something. And afterwards, there was like 6 weeks of internship at a company, and applied at a company here in Antwerp, which was the first job that I had in the end. So they hired me at the end of the internship, which was really cool. And that's how my career basically started. And the company I did the internship for, they were super helpful. So I still like remember a lot of fun moments where like especially my boss from then, he really helped me starting out with my career, teaching me the basics, getting me started, and getting me like just feeling that joy for programming, and like keeping that grasp ever since throughout my career. The rest of my career is basically just trying to find my way, trying to grow, trying to and like keeping that joy for programming.
What is it that led you to leave that job then? Because I know at some point you went to freelancing, right?
I decided to like start as a freelancer because I kind of felt like the place where I was then, I felt like I couldn't really learn that much anymore because there was like only so much room they could give me for learning. And it wasn't their fault, definitely not. It was just like the way things worked there. But I felt like I needed to like try more. I felt the need to like learn a lot more. And I was then in a point in my career where I tried to like try that on my own, like going freelance. And in hindsight, when I look back on it, it's kind of a bad choice that I took there. Like I didn't had that much connections yet. I didn't know a lot of potential clients back then. I just like jumped in head first, thought that everything was gonna go great, but things weren't.
So how long were you self-employed for at that time?
It was a very short period. It was only for like 2 months, 2 or 3 months, yeah, and before I decided to quit back then. And in hindsight, it learned me a lot. Like it learned me a lot back then what it was like to start as a freelancer. So in hindsight, like it was also like a positive experience because I could take that knowledge that I got from back then and apply it the next time I was gonna start as a freelancer. I would like be way more prepared for when I made the same choice in the future.
What was that experience like at the time? Because, as you say, being self employed in hindsight probably wasn't a great idea at the time. So, how did you deal with that experience? What was it that you took away from it?
Yeah, exactly. It was very different because from one day to the other, you don't have any colleagues anymore. Like you're basically just working on your own, trying to find clients, trying to find work. And I had a buddy back then from which I knew from going to meetups, which is called Michiel Lonke, and he helped me out a lot with finding that initial work. It was a lot of WordPress stuff back then, and I did a lot of that kind of work, and it was okay. It was some pretty fun projects, but I still didn't feel like I was doing the actual work I wanted to do. So like I said, like after 2 months or something, working on my own, sitting behind my desk and just feeling a bit lonely, I guess, as well, I decided to do something else. And I was back then when a different buddy of mine was looking for a new developer to join his company, and he helped me out getting the new gig there at the company. And it was a company back in my previous province where I'm from, Limburg. So it was in the time when I moved back to Limburg as well. And I decided to just find something closer to home, to be closer to family back then. And I started out at the company. It was a small web agency again, basically the same thing as my first job, but it was a totally different vibe there. It's things were different. It didn't seem so at first. I had I must say my colleagues were great. I've had some really great colleagues there, but the work environment wasn't super positive. I had some pretty bad experiences there. And after a few months, I already noticed this is nothing for me. This is back, if I would be pretty harsh about it, one of the worst experiences I had working in my career so far.
What do you feel you took away from that experience?
In a hindsight, when I look back upon that experience, I think it's important that I went through that because I learned a lot from it. I took a lot of lessons from what I don't want to do anymore in my life, and how people in general behave in stressful situations, in situations where a boss doesn't really care about his employees. And that gave me a lot of perspective on later life, on how if I was ever going to work for a boss again, how I was gonna fit in a company, and how I was gonna react to a potential boss or potential co-workers again. So that gave a lot of experience. So I'm actually all of the bad experiences throughout my career still helped me and still gave me a lot to learn. Yeah.
I think it's really good that you're able to take away those negative experiences and turn them into something positive. I think that is one of life's biggest challenges sometimes.
Exactly. That's what I've been trying to do throughout my life and my career. Basically, never really think of a really bad experience as only bad, because every single thing you go through, it's a lesson you can take for the further part in your career. And everything I went through definitely helped me to grow as a person, as a developer, and in my career in general.
You're now working at Laravel, which is a completely remote job. That's very different to what you've previously done. How do you deal with the remote work aspect and the loneliness that can come with that sometimes?
Well, I have to say that at first, it's pretty daunting, just working on your own from home. And I've always been a person who has always been on his own a little bit. So I guess that helps quite a bit to get started. And I must say that the remote work is actually really fits well for me. I really, I'm a person who enjoys solitude a lot.
Do you think that's a good thing though?
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. For work, sometimes it can be enjoyable because you can really focus on stuff, not being interrupted and stuff. But I also really enjoy having people around me. So it's basically half-half at this point. I'm not only working from home, but I'm also working at a co-work here in Antwerp, where I actually joined my previous job, which is a small startup here in Antwerp. And my colleagues from there, I can just like join them and sit at my previous table basically, and still enjoy talking with my colleagues from back then, which is really fun.
Is that something that you would perhaps suggest to people that are about to start a remote working job or have been working remotely for a while now and are maybe feeling the effects of that, perhaps?
Yeah, like I still like think it probably depends on the kind of person you are, but I can really like suggest that you definitely find something at least for like 1 or 2 days in a week where you're still amongst people, because it's important to have that social contact still. Like I can only imagine how it must be for people who are like very remote, only on themselves. And like if it works for you, then all for the better. Like don't feel obligated to do anything besides the thing you feel most comfortable with. But for me personally, I enjoy that half thing of like just spending a few days in a week on my own here at home, trying to focus, trying to get some work done. And the other days I can still like join my previous colleagues, still get some work done, still be focused, but at the same time have that social contact.
You've worked for a few different companies now. What do you think it is that separates a good company from a bad one where mental health, including a good learning environment, is concerned?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think like from my personal experiences, I think empathy is one of the biggest key factors that any manager or people in power at the company like needs to have, like knowing that the people you work on are humans, are human beings with feelings, are human beings with thoughts, which might have like I don't know, like stressed out feelings, like knowing that the humans you work with are just people and they're not tools you can use for your company. And I think a lot boils down to like talking a lot, talking with your employees, how they feel, how they are feeling at this particular point when work is stressed out, when things need to get done. Just knowing that your people are still motivated and capable enough of doing the job, and not like pushing them to their limits. And I felt like my first job did a really good thing there. They were like my bosses, especially my direct boss was someone who was very empathic, I could always talk to him about everything I wanted to get rid, even personal stuff. And that really motivated me a lot for doing the job and keeping myself motivated to continuing. And whenever I had like that moment when I needed to take a break, get some vacation, or get like de-stress a little bit from work, they understood and they felt like, and they supported me throughout that. And that's something I kind of missed in my second job. Like I still like I said, like my colleagues have been really great, but when I saw like how like sometimes people were treated and like how stressful the work environment was, I can only say like that was something like I never want to experience again in any future job anymore. Because like in the end, when you push people to their limits, they're gonna break. They're gonna be depressed, or they're gonna like sink into a hole which they can difficultly climb out from again. I've noticed that a lot as well in older people in my family, where they get pushed a lot to their limits and sink into a state where they just aren't capable of working anymore. And I think like it doesn't really boils down to age, but I guess like the older you become, you tend to like become a little bit more receptive to it. And I think like when you're younger, you're still always like trying to push you much harder than when you're a bit farther down through your career path.
Yeah, I think that if you're working at 100% all of the time, you'll definitely reach a point in which you burn out and then it becomes harder to get back into a working environment. And I imagine that these kind of mindsets are still here because historically, most jobs only consisted of manual labor. Do you think that it's a bit of a misconception that because younger people are generally fitter and more physically healthy, that they're mentally healthy too and should be working at their maximum all of the time because that's what was expected previously?
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. I think like there's definitely some misconceptions about how the mental state of someone like is. I think like it doesn't really matter how old you are. Every person like struggles with different things in different times in their lives, and age maybe makes you more aware about noticing some first like indications when you're feeling a little bit more stressed, like seeing those first signs of depression, and you can react maybe a little bit better on it. And definitely that helps. But when you're younger stage, you're definitely like still receptive to like breakdowns and when something very bad happens in your life, that you can definitely feel as much depressed as when you're older. And I see a lot, especially in a lot of companies, that younger people get pushed a lot more to their limits, because like I know of like one company right now where I know someone works, and they tell me like they need to work like a lot longer than their colleagues because they still need to prove themselves a lot. And I think that's a very bad like thing to say, because like you're not like need to prove yourself more than your colleagues. You just need to prove yourself who you are and your capabilities, and working longer and harder doesn't really prove that. It just like brings you that much closer to your full limit, and maybe even going over it every single time. And I think like that's very important to know about younger people, that they are still just humans, no matter like how your physical status, like your mental status, is just the same as someone who's older. Older people just have like more wisdom and life experience of dealing with and coping with their mental health issues. And even that isn't true always. It isn't always the case.
I guess to follow on from that then, what do you think that companies should be doing more of to invest in their employees' mental health?
Yeah, I think like there are a couple of things you can do as a company, but like I said before, I think like talking is the most important part. Having those one-on-one moments with people, like just pulling them out of their work environment and talking them on a basic level, not even on work, like just asking them, how's life going? How are you doing? How are you feeling right now? How are you dealing with the thing you're working on right now? Is it stressful? Is there something we can shift, something we can change, something we can help out with? And not always like trying to lay the burden on an employee and like having them go at it for 100% of the time. It's always important to take a step back and like seeing on a human level how employees and your colleagues are behaving, and not like always focusing on work.
What's really interesting is that nothing you've suggested there costs companies anything. Sure, it's a bit of time, and time is money, but time being spent on employees will go much further than anything else. And having recently been in a situation where these types of conversations were needed, I can definitely attest to how much they're appreciated and how much they help.
Yeah, and I think that that's like the main thing takeaway of it. Like in a business, from a business point of view, of course, like every time is money. But if you think about it, really, like having that one-on-one moment where you talk to someone, like just spending like 10 minutes with them, just checking in on how they are, you can get like, even from a business point of view, you can totally get that back if you know that your employees are doing well and they're like capable of doing their jobs and feeling good about it. It just doesn't make sense to think about it like in terms of money, that it'll cost you money to invest time into people. I think it only benefits everyone if you're working in a safe and healthy work environment. Yeah.
Given that you are now a conference and meetup organizer, what do you think that both of those can be doing to help?
I think like now that I've done my first conference, like I'm beginning to realize like what kind of like reach you have to people internationally, not only on your local community I have with the user groups, but also with the conference on an international level. And I think like especially like really big conferences, they have like such a great big reach, and they have such a great opportunity to bring about the thing which is called mental health, and making people more aware that mental health isn't something that's there and like people can address it through podcasts or like web forums online. No, you have those places where actual people are physically in one location, and you can like bring about different kind of opportunities which aren't online, which are just physical opportunities where you can involve speakers and like separate moments throughout those events to help people out, talk to people, offering them comfort zones, opportunities to talk to people. And we at Full Stack Europe, we had a certain contact person which you could contact if you needed to just have a talk, if you needed to feel like some rule in the code of conduct was violated, where you just wanted to like have secure and safe location and safe person to talk about whatever it is you're trying to experience. And I think like those kind of small things really help in the bigger part.
I can't speak for other communities, but it seems that the PHP community is very opinionated, which I find really strange because I think that this can and does have a negative effect on the community itself. So what do you think community leaders and key figures should be doing to address these issues?
Yeah, that's a very good point you're now bringing, because I see a lot of that in the PHP community as well. I think like a lot of also boils down to what we talked about previously, which is empathy and like realizing that people have different opinions, and also like making the effort to listen to others and talk about things on a normal level, and don't like bash down upon things. I think a conversation between two people who have different opinions should be civilized and not be broken down into like these opinions of my opinion against yours opinion. No, you have different kind of opinions, but they can all still have their place.
Okay, before we end the episode, I would like to ask you one final question, completely unrelated to the industry itself. What is your happy place and why?
Oh, wow. That's a deep question. I think like for me personally, I'm someone who as a person tries to always like find value and recognition into others. And that's not always a positive thing, but I get a lot of value when like people are happy from the things I'm doing for them. You know, when like friends tell them like, or you're a good friend, or like, thank you that you did something for me. Like I always like am happy when I can help people out, when I can give them a great event experience, or I can build something great for them, or I can help them out with moving to a different place. Like that makes me happy, like helping others out and like getting recognition for that. Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for being my first guest, Dries.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
So that marks the end of episode 1 of Happy Dev. Thank you to Dries for giving me your time and being open to sharing your experiences and thoughts on this platform. Thank you also for being my first guest. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed making it. Don't forget to subscribe for the next episode, and I will see you then. Goodbye.